I've been living in Japan for like the last 20 years. I founded Xpress AI in 2020. I've been running this company for a number of years. I've also taught at a university here in Japan and written a book on deep learning. So, 2016, 2017, there was a lot of, AI was getting very popular those days. At the moment, we were building an email assistant of types. Through doing that, I became one of the most knowledgeable people on deep learning for J in Japan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. This is episode 84, and my name is Lum, your Web3 host, Web3 and Entrepreneurship host. For those of you who are new to the show, Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship is a show highlighting the journeys of builders and innovators in Web3 and entrepreneurship. Some topics expected in Web3 may get technical, but we do our best to keep it accessible for most people. Here today, I'm joined by Eduardo Gonzalez. He's the co-founder and CEO of Xpress AI. Eduardo, can you give a quick introduction by yourself?
So I'm the co-founder, CEO of Xpress AI. Interesting thing about me is I've been living in Japan for like the last 20 years. I studied Japanese in university as well as computer science. And then once I graduated from university, I got a job in Tokyo and I worked there for a while, doing things with like SoftBank and stuff like that, MUFG, like the big banks over here as well. And then I left that job to join a Y Combinator company called Skymind in 2016, 2017, thereabouts, where I really got into deep learning and deploying deep learning into production to a lot of large enterprises. And yeah, COVID really hit that company very hard, mainly because we had a lot of business in China, and China really locked themselves down during that period. And I spun out to my own company. So I founded Xpress AI in 2020, where, kind of went through various shifts in things as AI has kind of shifted over the years. And now, I've been running this company for a number of years. I've also taught at a university here in Japan and written a book on deep learning. So kind of really invested in AI and helping out the kind of Japanese ecosystem here.
Awesome. Wow. So yeah, sounds like you've done quite a lot of things in you said like 20 years in Japan, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I kind of came here 2005, yeah.
Okay, and then you said you worked for a bank first. Were you like a programmer there back then? And then
so I worked at a system integrator called Japan Business Systems. I also worked at a company called Panasonic. You might have heard of them.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of like started at Panasonic, but it was a temporary kind of internship type of position, very good. And then after that, I had to go and get a real job. And unfortunately, 2008 was not a great year to be looking for a job. So Panasonic didn't have any openings that year. But I did get into a company called Japan Business Systems, which was a Microsoft-focused system integrator. It was kind of great to work there because there was like big companies like the biggest television company, the biggest bank company, and one of the biggest telecom companies were all customers. And so I got to experience doing projects with all these enterprises in Japan. And after that, I've always had this kind of inkling to do innovative things, and they supported me in doing that when I created like this iPhone application building group inside of the company, and then we made an iPhone application, and then they decided to make an R&D group where I was one of the main managers of that R&D group.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So you were like always experimenting with new technology, right? Yeah. Since you came to Japan, and then you said that you work for a Y Combinator company, right? And then was this in Japan also, or was this in US?
Yeah. So it was interesting. 2016, 2017, there was a lot of AI was getting very popular those days. And at my company, JBS, I had to, kind of pick a deep learning framework to build our new AI products on top of. At the moment, we were building an email assistant of types. So you could essentially, it would scan everybody's emails. And, if you had someone asking you for some dates for a meeting, it would automatically link your calendar and find you the available dates. And if somebody asked you to do something, it would kind of extract that into a task. And we had an iPhone application that handled and showed all that information for you. And at the time, to do all that right, we kind of needed to use like powerful language models like LSTMs. And but we had this kind of, we need to do things in the enterprise. So just doing things with Lua or MATLAB was not really an option. And there was a company called Skymind, which made a deep learning framework for Java called Deep Learning for J. And so I used that, and we built our product on top of that. And through doing that, I became one of the the most knowledgeable people on deep learning for J in Japan. And they were talking to I think Masayoshi Son at that time to do a possible investment, and they were like, "Man, this is a rocket ship going to take off. Leave that place and join us." And so that sounded more interesting than what I was doing. So I decided to jump ship, and I went over to them. Now, their main customers were in Japan, Asia, Korea, and China. So I didn't have to move to San Francisco, even though it was a San Francisco company. And so I was able to stay here and get a job and get a San Francisco salary. So that seemed, good for me. So that's why I jumped in and joined them. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I would say that's like probably the best of both worlds, right? Yeah, you keep US work with US, but I mean, if you can keep the Japan hours, because US hours would probably be very tough
Yeah. I
for
mean,
Japan based. Yeah.
I'd say, Japan hours are pretty crazy, but startup hours, those are another whole other ball
for
game.
sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was the main product they were building then, and what did you build
So
with
at
Skymind?
Skymind, our main thing was we wanted to take DL4J, which was a library for deep learning, and make it into more like a product that enterprises could use. So
I see.
we integrated.
Was this originally open source, by the way?
Yeah, so the library was open source, and what we did was we created like a platform that integrated notebooks and integrated with Hortonworks and other like Hadoop ecosystems, so that if you were a Hadoop user, you could very quickly set up a notebook that could deploy your deep learning for J jobs into your cluster, and we would handle all the stuff. So when it comes to these big data clusters, you don't want to change the software on them. Like there's thousands of machines, they're working. So you have to have something that can, deploy exactly what you need, including like GPU kernels or CPU specific instructions to accelerate the training. And then also the networking. When it comes to deep learning, getting all the machines to share their parameters is the biggest bottleneck, right? Like usually in Spark and other big data things, you're kind of sending these jobs to all the nodes, and then they work only on their local data, so they don't have to talk on the network too much. But with deep learning, everybody has the data, but then they have to share the network that they trained, so you can average all the weights and then continue the training. And then this has to happen periodically. So, Spark does not like doing that. It's like completely separate from Hadoop. So part of it was like setting everything up and making this kind of like sidecar type of virtual network that everybody could talk to each other with, and then they would share their parameters and continue to train the model. And that worked for some, large clusters, 5,000, 10,000 nodes.
Wow.
It was very interesting. And yeah, companies that have that many computers were interesting to work with as well.
I see. Yeah, I bet. I mean, that's like a lot of computing power, right? And you said it's like GPU, and also, was this like streaming data, or was this like on a certain batch?
Yeah, so it's not really streaming data when it comes to like the deep learning. You usually have a data set.
Yeah.
And so like I like to think of training a model is kind of like launching a rocket ship, where except for burning fuel, you're burning money. To it's like a big transformation, right? You have all these machines, and you're taking essentially a lot of money or electricity essentially, and transforming that into like this fragment of intelligence type of thing. So the data set is essentially all set up, and you kind of want every node to have it. So first step is all the nodes kind of coordinate so that they have um, all the data that they want to train on together first, and then the parameter server is what it's called, kind of shares the model with all the nodes. And they can also share the nodes with each other. So it's like peer-to-peer type of thing to do it as fast as possible. And then after that, they all start training on their data. And they don't train on the entire data. They train on like one part, and everybody's training on a different part. Each server is. And then once they finish like a step or a mini batch size, they have different models. Like they started the same, but then they're slightly different. And then they all kind of merge those weights together, and we average it all. And then they receive the averages from everybody else. And then they continue for the next step. And by doing that, it's kind of like, everybody's training on all the data, but like little by little, they kind of rely on part of the updates from all the other computers, but they provide their own updates to the thing. And then you just do that until you've covered all the data once or twice or 10 times, something like that. And then at the end of that, you have like these set of weights that you trained, and that is your model. And you can take that away from HDFS, download it, and start using it in, on a GPU or whatever you want.
Makes sense. Yeah. But I think that's what some of the most difficult thing in like AI is like train the huge model on like production system. I think we both experienced with like training model locally is so easy, right? It's just one machine and
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. But like when it comes to 100 or even like you said like 1,000
Yeah.
machine,
I
it's
would
really
say the
kind of
best way to kind of really experience what that is like at the moment without having to burn the money yourself is Hugging Face recently released a post on how they trained their small model, their small agent model. And it's a small model, but it still took, like hundreds of H100s to train, right? And they pretty much documented the entire process step by step. It was great. Like it was, that's exactly what it's like to train these really large models. So if anybody in your audience is interested in it, I highly recommend that post from Hugging Face.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think that'd be a good, valuable resource for you to learn about as well. And I think you did mention that you wrote a book on deep learning, right? Yeah, you're probably one
Yeah.
of the few. I mean, deep learning is already a very hot topic. Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book? I'm curious. And
So
what areas of deep learning also?
yeah, so the book is a Japanese book, and it's called Learning Deep Learning Through Implementation. Like, so
Okay.
you're implementing apps, and then that's how you learn the deep learning part. And essentially, it was kind of started by one of my colleagues at Skymind at the time. And yeah, unfortunately, he couldn't finish it. So, but he was essentially like using my tutorial to start the book. So then I did have to finish it. And so, yeah, so I kind of finished the book. So we kind of co-authored it. It wasn't really 100% me, but essentially took what we taught at Skymind and made it into a little book that showed you how to like the basics of deep learning, but then also like how to make it into an application, like using message queues or these kind of things to batch up requests so that you can use your GPU efficiently, and how to hook it up into like a web server, for example. So yeah, it's kind of a really down to earth book, I think, and I'm not sure I would do that again because I think a lot of people when they're looking to learn something, they kind of want to do one thing at a time, right? In this book,
Yeah.
like the premise of the book, and I think there's a whole series of it. So it's not like we wanted to do that book. They kind of asked us to do it in this style. Has to kind of teach two things at once, and I think that can be confusing to people.
I see. Yeah, I bet. I mean, I think even writing a book alone is already hard enough already. And you said the book is actually written in in Japanese.
Yeah, so
Oh wow, that's even
I've
harder.
been in Japan for a long time, so I
Yeah.
did do that. But I also had one of our partners, Shingo-san from who was at NEC at the time, was he helped us out and helped to translate and fix all of my bad Japanese, essentially. So I would like to say that my Japanese is good enough to write an entire book, and while after 20 years I might be pretty close to it, I'm still not there, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I think for many foreigners like us who live in Japan, even after like a decade or even two, right, still very hard to
Yeah.
get to like the native level of Japanese. I
Mhm.
think that's why you don't see many like foreigners in Japan doing like sales related role Usually those
Yeah.
roles are for like mainly you have really have native level, especially like enterprise sales. It's just really
Yeah.
hard.
I
Yeah.
like the foreigner kind of long-term foreigner community in Tokyo is not that big. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
But it's not that big. So I know a few people, and I would say that I can count on my hands the number of kind of foreigners who have such a good, who are essentially, you cannot distinguish them from native
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's not that they were born here or anything. It's just that they're just that dedicated, I guess, to it,
Yeah.
that could totally, be salespeople in and of themselves. So, and I'm sure there's more. I don't know every foreigner who lives in Japan, but at least in the AI space, I think I know all the AI related ones.
I
And
see.
there's really like less than 10.
Yeah.
It'd
Yeah.
be
No, I
pretty
think
hard.
that's true. I think it's very few. I think maybe I've only seen or known a few people who's like really good native level. But I think because they were doing it like YouTube, like creator, media,
Mm.
and also like comedian. Right? There's
Oh
some
yeah,
good foreigner comedian, but like that level is just like I think even beyond native. But yeah, it's just
yeah.
really hard. But interesting.
And
Cool.
it is. It is like if you aren't totally native, like when you're doing sales, particularly, right?
Yeah.
When it's time to close, and closing is kind of like a weird, it's not necessarily a battle per se, but
Yeah.
there's the objections, and you have to, like every customer is always going to have objections. If not,
Yep.
you price yourself too low.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be objections, and you don't really want your objections to be like, oh man, these guys don't speak Japanese properly, right? Like, so like any kind of excuse that a customer can hang on that, which you can't just justify. Like when it's about the product, uh, like sometimes it's a totally valid concern. Like, oh, yeah, we cannot do that, or that product does not do that, doesn't solve this specific case. So you're completely right. It's not the product for you. No problems, right? No hard feelings. Let me show you someone else that'd be a better fit or something like that. Like that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But when they can like point to your salespeople not having proper Japanese and having communication problems with them, that's not something
Yeah.
that you could just be like, oh no, you're not right. Like they are totally right. There's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, there's always someone who kind of feels like um, they would love to come to Japan to do sales, but yeah, it can be pretty hard.
Yeah, no, it's super hard, and I think it's like, I mean, they can totally use that as like a valid excuse, right? Because your sales guy didn't really explain the product good enough, so like we
Yeah,
turned them
yeah.
down. Yeah. So it's totally valid excuse to in the world, and also in Japan, I think the sales is like less what is it? What's the word, like forceful or salesy, like in the
Mhm.
US, but more like on build on relationship and I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
a lot of these are actually like very, like, yeah, you do have to be able to converse not only business but also conversation at a very deep level in Japanese.
Mhm.
And like I
Yep.
said, very,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
like,
take years.
yeah, like sales here, because it's more relationship focused for a lot of the bigger ones. You kind of need to be around. You kind of need to be like
Yeah.
talking to people and reaching out and kind of meeting them where they're at, or going out to lunch or dinner and stuff like that. And if you can't completely carry this conversation, you're gonna have a really hard time doing that. So.
Yeah. Exactly. I still remember like fun story. I was helping a friend. This is like during COVID time. I was doing like a couple of different like freelancing stuff. I was helping a friend of mine. He's actually like doing a sales for like IT outsourcing. He runs his
Mhm.
own IT outsourcing firm, right? So obviously they go to with the customer, and yeah, I think we go all the way from like morning until evening, just accompanying them. But yeah, I think that's really taught me like, oh man, this is really tough. Like trying to explain the business in like in Japanese, but also at the night, go drinking and then also talking in very deep topic in
Mhm.
Japanese. Also, it's like this is what really it takes to be Japanese native level. I think it was like beyond N1. I actually took the N1
Mhm.
one. I didn't even feel it that hard as like that conversation that I had. Accompanying him one day, like meeting
Mhm.
his customers, right? And then yeah,
Yeah.
took him whole day.
Because
Yeah,
like
mm,
it's not just proper Japanese that you got to learn there,
yeah,
right? Like
hmm,
there's nuances, there's um, like pop culture references, and these kind of
a
things that
lot.
all become important if you want to be a like a good
Yep.
drinking partner,
Yeah,
and
or
you
sales.
want to be a good drinking partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
had to be. Cool. Yeah. So, well, before we deep dive into your current company, actually, just one fun question. Can you share with us what do you do for fun in your free time? What are your hobbies?
So right now, so like really, like programming and gaming is my hobbies, right? So like when I'm not
Nice.
doing stuff for work, I'm usually, like tricking out my computer or checking out technology. Um, and yeah, that's why I have an Ubuntu setup on my computer and
Nice.
things like that. I like to play with servers and do weird things with my game consoles, for example. And yeah, so I would say like that's my main hobby. But recently, I've been thinking about getting into motorcycles. Like for some
Oh,
reason,
cool.
you become 40 years old, and for some reason, you're interested suddenly in motorcycles and whiskey and cigars.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
it-
It's so weird. I had zero interest in motorcycles up until the day I turned 40. And then all of a
uh,
sudden, it's like, man, I want a motorcycle,
interesting.
It's
Were
really
you
weird.
looking at like what is it, like heavy weight or medium weight or like lightweight?
I mean, so since I've never really ridden one, I think I have to start small. So I'm
I
kind
see.
of eyeing
Yeah.
what's called like maybe not a scrambler, like a CL. Like there's a couple of Hondas like the Rebel and things like that aren't necessarily sports bikes.
Okay.
But at the same time, like if I'm going to actually use it, I do want to be able to go 100 kilometers an hour. So
I see.
of the
Yeah.
250cc bikes out
Yeah.
there that go 100, they all kind of are these light sport touring ones.
Yeah.
So like the CBR 250R
Yeah.
R. Um, so like that's the one I'm kind of like eyeing, but yeah, don't know. I haven't even like to ride a bike in Japan. You have to get your motorcycle driver's
You do.
license. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I did get my Japanese driver's license in Japan. I went to the school and did all
Oh
that
wow.
stuff. So I still have to go and do that, and yeah, and that will take a lot of time that I don't have. But now that I'm into motorcycles, I'm kind of like looking at the different gear and
Yeah.
thinking about where I could go, and that's kind of fun to think about at least right now.
I see. Yeah. Well, just a side anecdote actually. So I used to work for like a motorcycle company, believe it or
Oh,
not. So
really?
actually, I know how to ride like even up to the heavyweight bike as well. So like you have
Oh,
the
wow.
medium and then heavyweight.
Mhm.
Like even
Mhm.
750cc and above, I can ride them. I
Oh,
have
wow.
a license here in Japan as well. It's
Mhm.
yeah. I also went to the school as well, so I can share with you that yeah, school took me like I think 3 or 4 months, which is like
Oh,
I
wow.
taking
Okay.
on a part time, right? It wasn't full time.
Mhm.
They
Yeah, yeah.
also there's also like a shortcut for like a what is it? I think they call driving school, where you go to
Mhm.
a countryside school.
Oh,
So you
yeah, yeah.
spend 1 or 2 weeks. I think very intense, and then they just
Mhm.
teach you everything, and then you take the test right
Mhm.
there, and you get your license after 2 weeks. That's it.
Mhm.
So that's like a shortcut, but you have to basically sacrifice 2 weeks of your work. Like I guess
Yeah,
yeah, that's what you'll be
that's
doing full time. That's
pretty
probably
hard.
tough.
Unless,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
if I had 2 weeks, it's either something really good or something really, really bad happened. I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially when you run the company, man. 2 weeks is like, oh man, that's a pretty long time,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you run the startup
Ideally,
stuff.
like that's the thing, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
if you're running a company and you're doing everything right, you're not required, so you could like totally leave for 2 weeks.
yeah,
But it's very hard to do that, like especially when it's a startup. There's so many different variables. Not everything
yeah,
is defined, and things change quite a lot, especially in the AI space. Like I feel
yeah,
like if I were to take 2 weeks off, I would come back and the world would be a different place. You know,
yeah.
given how fast things go.
Yeah, totally. They may release like a new model. There's like some
Mhm.
new tools or technology, new agent
Yeah,
framework, some everything come out, right? So, yeah,
yeah. Like
cool. But yeah,
literally, what I noticed today. So
mm,
last weekend, I did this presentation along with Mistral and Hugging Face about
mm,
doing agentic fine tuning of models, right? And it's different than fine tuning regular models because when you're just fine tuning models like normal, you have your data set and that's it. But with agents, the agents use tools, and those tools, like go out to the internet and do stuff, right? And you can't just give your agent uh, like this tool data when it's fine tuning, um, or else you might get a bunch of deleted files, for example. So you kind of need to simulate that, right? And so I kind of presented how you can have one agent that is pretending to be the tool user, and And then you can like take failures in specific and then try to make them right with hindsight, for example. So that's like a way to do this agentic fine-tuning. And just yesterday, OpenAI added agentic fine-tuning to their platform. So
Wow.
it's really fast. You got to be always implementing if you're and we're not necessarily trying to compete directly with OpenAI. We're trying to go into a different niche where local models are the more important thing, for example. And there's choice and enterprise integrations, but still, like, we can't be left behind. We have to kind of have an answer or something to all
Yeah.
the features that OpenAI has. And I always feel like we're like one step ahead of them. But unlike a normal, like, I guess they're not a big company. They're definitely a startup, so they're able to move as fast as we can.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, but you do have to like keep on top, right? That's why the 2 weeks like being away from work, which is like tough. Yeah, impossible.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, and I think that segue perfectly into your company. Maybe if you could share a bit about the background of how you founded the company, and then afterward,
Mhm.
feel free to deep dive and maybe you can walk through some presentation or some demo about your
Yeah.
some company product.
So
That'd be great. Yeah.
So when I was at Skymind, we had a pretty technically advanced product, because it was like Java and big data and all these kind of cool keywords, right? And my experience at JBS, not to like throw shade at any one of our customers or anything like that, but in most enterprises, you don't necessarily have um, the top of the line people doing everything. Of course, in most companies, you do have incredibly competent engineers. They're doing the most important parts of the engineering at the company. So, for example, at SoftBank, I worked with the chief scientist in the CTO's office, and they were doing incredible stuff in that room. Right, that no problems there. But I also worked at like the customer services and customer support sections of the companies, where the IT department there doesn't necessarily have uh, data scientist skills. Like, you don't necessarily hire data scientists for your customer support things. And um, so I kind of felt like there's an untapped market of making AI much more accessible to normal workers, that we weren't really doing in when I was at Skymind. So it's always been on my back of my mind, is like, we should make a GUI for doing these things, like some kind of graphical interface for creating AI pipelines to make it easy for people to uh, maybe not necessarily implement it from scratch, but at least that they can maintain it themselves. Now at Skymind, we never really wanted to go into that direction, right? We kind of wanted to be focused on, targeting the companies that made use of the technology, which all had big data clusters, right? But when they had to downsize because of the COVID thing, I decided to spin out my own company, Xpress AI, and that was the goal, which was like in the 50s and 60s, when you wanted to use a computer, you had to program it. If you wanted to do graphics on a computer, you also had to program it. Back in the 80s, right, when people were making computer games, they wrote the computer games in like assembly language, essentially, right? Not the games, but like the music for the games.
Yeah.
These days, you have Logic Pro and you have Final Cut Pro. You got like these very graphical applications that really help translate and bridge the gap between what the data looks like and then what you want to do looks like. And I always felt like data science is not a programming career. Like, even though data scientists, they do program, uh, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's kind of like different than regular application programmers. And we always kind of like fought with that kind of thing, where the data scientists would do something, they throw the model that they trained over the wall to operations, which would then have to figure out how to put that into production. And there's always that gap. So I felt like, why isn't there like a Logic Pro or Final Cut Pro for data science as well, that could make, like, I'm not a editor, but I can use Final Cut. because it makes the whole process very easy for me. And so I was like, I want to do that, but for AI, data science. So if people can train their own models, use their own models, even for the core business that they have, but they don't have to be absolute experts to do that. And so with that, I created Xpress AI, and we set up our first product, which is to be a graphical, like drag and drop interface for creating data science workflows, and automating, making it so that you can train models in a graphical way.
Nice. Wow. Oh, interesting. So that was I guess was that the original like use case, right, for DS workflow? And then I'm sure by now you probably have evolved a lot, right?
Yeah, we've kind of like evolved.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like it's interesting because the product doesn't have to like completely change to like the thing that's driving the change is really the advancements in AI, right? Like it's becoming much easier to do things with models than it was before. So back in the day, there was no Hugging Face, right? There was no kind of like repository of models. At Skymind, we had our own, which had, like a bunch of models that were, pretty standard, like Lynette and AlexNet and these kind of things, right? So there's like little repositories of models started to pop up. But that's like a very different world where there's no models out there. So if you need to do something with AI, well, your first step is you need to get some data and then figure out what model architecture you want to use and then go and do that. Now there's a lot of models out there. And I think it's very similar to how like in the 90s, when you wanted to make an application, you kind of had to do all the programming for yourself. There was no like libraries out there like there are today. But today you just npm install your favorite front-end framework, and there's like 20 or 50 that are still in use today, and you can just pick your favorite one and start from there. So data science and maybe not necessarily data science anymore, because I think it's actually expanded, but like in AI and in general, we've gone more and more into this kind of npm style thing where you just like pull in a model and then start training it. Then you didn't even need to do that, right? Like you can just set up a workflow of an LLM with some tools, and then and then start prompting it, right? So we've kind of had to take what we have, which is like this vector database that we created and this drag and drop system, and then kind of bring it up to the level of what people are doing today. And we were doing that in 2022, 2023, and not a lot of people understood it. But now that OpenAI has created their agent kit, which is like a drag and drop agent builder, and N8N is doing very well and stuff like that, I think, we were always on the right track when it came to that. Like there's something very powerful with being able to kind of set up a workflow, like do this, then do that, and do that in a visual way that you can understand. And it's different than vibe coding. Like one of the things I don't like about that whole vibe coding thing is you essentially get a black box out of that. If there's a bug, you can't fix it. With Xpress AI, you can ask the agent to create new components for you, and it does, but you're still the one that's wiring them up together. So you see this high level view that I can understand. And then maybe these details are things that I leave to the AI. But there's just something that's really good about that, I think, which means I have something where I understand what's going on. And usually when you're making an agent that can use tools, you want to know what's going on. Like it's kind of important. You can't just YOLO it and then have it start giving every customer a discount for no reason, right? It's been interesting.
Yeah, I bet. I think the explainable AI, like having some way so you can see the reasoning and thinking of that, certainly help, right? Like to understand the logic behind it. But it sounds like you were really ahead of the time, right? Because you're already building this in like 2020, and then I think until recently, right? Agentic Kit and NAN became more recently, more popular, right? But I think you're already like experimenting with the whole workflow, yeah. So you're already like a few years ahead of the game, and and now OpenAI,
a little too far ahead. Like I think when I started, I was kind of like arguing with OpenAI's engineers about agent stuff being ready, because their main feeling was that it wasn't ready, and there was just so many things that they could do. But if you have the right setup in place, it was totally doable back then to do all sorts of very simple use cases. And now with the long context and everything like that, you can be, I would say, sloppy with what you're doing, and it still works. So before, when you only had 8,000 tokens, you kind of had to be very careful about what you put in there. So the memory system was absolutely, it not only had to not get bad data, but it had to do it in a very succinct way, because you still needed tokens to do the thing that you needed to do. But now when you have a million context length, man, you don't need to do much. You can just like grab a bunch of random stuff here and there, stuff, and the agent can ignore a lot of things by itself. So now it might not be the most efficient, and that's kind of what our focus is right now. It's like, you have a million context length, but have you seen how long it takes an agent to go through a million tokens? It takes quite a while. And AIs do not get the they are not useful if they take the same amount of time that it takes humans to do things, right? It's like they are not yet at the exact level or surpassing the level of a human. And so if you're going to use an AI for something, it needs to do it maybe bad, but much faster, and or very consistently. And if you're just sloppily doing agents like what everybody else is doing, you're going to run into those problems where the agents do the wrong thing, or they do things different ways each time. So our main focus right now is like, how do you make a very predictable and very fast agent? And that's where our focus is right now.
Yeah, I think that also makes complete sense as well. Because in business, right, I think a lot of the workflows you want, there's a certain part that you want like deterministic result, and you also want that giving factual answer instead of like agent making up things or hallucinate, right? That's probably the worst thing ever. So I think if you come up with a system to actually harness that, obviously you cannot just do that using the default model, right? You have to have some extra training or fine tuning, some sort of thing to make it better. So I think it'll be very interesting if you can share one of the maybe use case or maybe a simple demo to see how the platform works. For the audience to see. I think that'll be simpler, since, as you said, there's like a GUI interface, right? GUI, graphic user interface.
So this is the Xpress AI homepage. This is where you can access the application. Now we have a cloud hosted one, but one of the interesting things about Xpress AI is that this is running in a data center, so it's possible to deploy this on-prem if you want. And essentially, the way I think about this is that what we have here by default is a collaboration platform for agents and people by default. So you have chat rooms, and inside of the chat room you have your participants. So this is just like Slack. But if you have agents, you can go to the plus and then add an agent into the chat room. And then once it's in the chat room, you can talk to it, and it can, respond. But it's not just a private chat like with ChatGPT. Everybody sees the same chat room. So like multiple people can use the agent at once. And so I think that's the kind of interesting difference of the UI that we have here. And if you still wanted to talk to the agent one-on-one, you totally can, right? Like you just like do a direct message type of thing. But if you wanted to come in here and say something like Gemini Zybo, like what time is it now, or something like that, it will go in and you can kind of see in here that it's thinking about its response. And because these are agents, tools, and they'll just kind of use the tools, what time it is, and respond. And the interesting thing about it is you can also do tasks, right? So I can assign tasks to the agent. When you have an agent doing tasks, you'll actually see the task that it's working on here in the side panel. And we have like a whole Kanban board for agent tasks. So, like if you think about it, if you're working with people, that's kind of the minimum that you need, right? If you have a chat system to communicate with people, and then you have like a Kanban board, then now you can work together.
Yeah.
You have like the minimum required to kind of say, I need you to do X, and then it can do X. Now, what it can do kind of depends on what you can integrate. And we have a bunch of integrations out of the box, like Google, GitHub, Telegram, Twilio. We have AWS and Confluence, Jira, and things like that. So if you wanted to, like one thing, because we use Google Workspace, I can always ask my agents to write up a document for me or access a document. And I just have to share the document with them, like if they were a person, and then that works. And then through things like the SendGrid integration, the agent has an email address. And so I can just send an email, like forward an email to my agent or one of the agents, and then they will go and work on it. And I can see what they're working on through the tasks system. So they'll a task will show up in the doing column. And and then when it's done, it will go into done. If they need me to do something, you can click on respond, and then this does that whole kind of human in the loop type of situation there. And if you want to see if it's scheduled a task for later, there's a whole calendar so they can schedule tasks for later. And nice. You can kind of create a scheduled task. So like every morning, you might want it to search the news or make a marketing post or something like that. And it's totally possible to do.
Wow. So it can basically run like a variety of tasks for you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
and using, I'm sure there's some underlying the foundation model.
The actual list
agent, right?
is
it runs on, and then
if I go to, where did I go? Let me go to the chat, this other chat system. So in our old chat system, we have this place where you can see the different models that we actually support. But it's pretty generic, and you can actually add other things even if we don't support them directly. But we have support for OpenAI's models, Anthropic's models, Google's. We also have Mistral and a bunch of open source ones like ZAI, Minimax, and Kimi, as well as GPT OSS and also Gemma and some others. And the great thing about those models in particular is that because they're open source, if you want to or need to, you can deploy them locally and then use them locally. If that makes sense. Let's see if I can go directly to here.
Yeah, I see. Interesting. So basically, you give people a variety of choice and whether they like the the OpenAI,
exactly.
the special big
all
large language model, or the one open source.
You can
also
you can make agents with
any
one of these. It's pretty simple. Like so, for example, right now I'm using Claude Sonnet 4.5 in my agent. But if I open it up, and this is the drag and drop system, right? So like I can take anything I want and drag it into here. And if I wanted to add a node in between these two steps, I can do that quite easily. For example, I don't want to do that right now because that would break my agent. But for example, let's say I want to change Claude Sonnet 4.5 to something else, and go in here and then switch it up to GPT OSS 120B, and now I'd be running with that. And it's essentially compatible with anything that uses OpenAI's API. So if you know, like Cerebras or Samba Nova have very fast inference for some of these models, like GPT OSS 120B. So you can actually experiment, like using those third-party like super GPU providers to get fast inference if you want. And it's very easy to just play around with here.
Okay. I see. So they just need to provide their own API for whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic. into your platform, and then they can just build their own agent, right? Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, so I'm actually kind of
Yeah,
curious. I mean, feel free to walk through some of the workflow, but like curious about what some of your clients. I
there's a
mean, feel free to
few.
share up to the
Yeah, like
degree of like
the nature of our
confidentiality
clients
that you're
means that we
comfortable
have
with.
to
Yeah,
be kind of
like
secretive
what have
about some of
they
the things
been
because they're
building?
like
Yeah,
financial
yeah.
institutions and stuff like that. But I do have some demos of things that I've done publicly that I can show.
Yeah, no, I totally
Like
understand.
so, for
Yeah.
example, in here in knowledge, you can see the different knowledge bases that the agent has
Oh yeah,
learned.
sure,
So,
please.
the agent is connected to a memory like this one, and that you can like go in and see what it's remembering. So, for example, like this is my personal assistant, so it needs to learn things about like what our strategic overview is, for example, or my name and address, these kind of things. So you can see that it has our office address here and so on and so forth. But you can also give it other memories, like for example, I made this. Let's see, we have like this crawler type of thing that I made for Rebase. So Rebase is a Japanese company that has like um,
Mm.
it's like a listing for spaces that you can rent. So if you want to rent a room to do some kind of yoga lesson or something like that, you would go to Rebase. They sponsored a hackathon, and I showed people how they could make an agent that would have
I
access
see.
to this. So, you can import this kind of raw data into this vector space, and it allows you to like search for something. So if you
Nice.
want to do like hackathon or something, you can see like what things are close to hackathon, and yeah, this is essentially what the agent would see if it looked for something like that. And that's all built in, right? You don't need to go to another service and then set it up and hook it up to your agents. It's all
Nice.
built in and
Yeah.
integrated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super
Mhm.
convenient. I mean, I found that like with obviously agent, the way the database that work best for the memory is a vector database.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's still a somewhat maybe confusing
Yeah,
concept. Can you
so
quickly explain like what is a vector
vector
database? I
databases
think
are
for
kind
us,
of
obviously we know, but like
special. I think
explain for
Rebase
the
is a good
non-technical
one.
audience. Yeah,
So, for
what's a vector
example,
databases?
while it's kind of hard to see here, um, the thing about vector databases is let me see if I do hackathon again. I'm not sure if this is going to be the best one to showcase it, but uh, the I searched in English and I got
Mm.
descriptions of these rooms that are in Japanese, and there's no keywords happening here. And I think that's the main thing. It's not that I have a hidden English
Yeah,
description or that I have extracted the keywords and normalized the keywords so that hackathon would hit. Hackathon has a meaning in this in a numerical sense. That's what a vector database is doing. So a large language model essentially takes words and then converts them into a set of numbers,
yep,
like a vector, an array of numbers. And those numbers are as such so that the numbers for a cat and a dog and a lion will be very similar to each other, right? They're different, but they're close, in like three-dimensional space if you were to do it that way. And for cars and
hmm,
trucks and houses, other things,
yeah,
those would be a lot farther apart than those three animals are together. And essentially, if you were to think of it in three dimensions, you could like map out everything that and that's what a vector database is doing. So a hackathon is a kind of like a contest that you need rooms, you need like a lot of chairs and things like that, and so it's able to kind of find me spaces with a few people. Like benkyokai is like a study or room or a seminar type of thing, and so it's kind of like matching with those in a very fuzzy sense. And
yeah,
why that's important for agents is that the agent, I mean, I would say it's less of an issue now.
mm,
We have very, very big context lengths. But in the beginning, when we had very small context lengths, you couldn't tell the agent what it had, right? Like you couldn't give it a list of all the things that it had in its memory. So it would have to just search in its memory for things and then, look them up. So Yeah, it's like a fuzzy search. So even it doesn't have to remember a specific keyword. As long as it's more or less what you want, it's going to find it in its memory.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. And I think it's super cool to have this built in because I think like try to integrate with
Yeah.
your own database. It's obviously possible, but it's gonna require more technical
Yep,
like knowledge and
exactly.
know-how, right?
And
And you said this
it's
platform is more
also
for like the
um,
non-technical
when you
users
have
mainly. Yeah.
like a
Cool.
real
Yeah.
database, well, you want to make sure your agent can't just delete that database, right? And also, like depending on who's asking, you might want to be careful
Yeah.
with what you pick out from the database. So, having something where, it's its own private space for its memories and things like that makes a lot of sense for me, right? Like, I have told it this information, so it's remembering the information. And if I were to have like a regular database of other things, I need to figure out what the rules would be, and that's way
Yeah.
harder to do. So yeah, um, yeah. And then apart from that, there's so I showed the
Yeah.
integrations,
That
and these are
makes
great.
sense.
And you might be like, wow, it's not a lot of integrations, and it's true. We actually have more integrations than is listed here, because one, it's easy to make new integrations. Inside of our visual environment here, we have this circuits assistant that
Mm-hmm.
can make things for you. So, for example, if you happen to need, like, I need a component that um, extracts the header from a CSV file or something like that, you can just ask the assistant to make that for you, and it will essentially. So you can integrate with a lot more things than we have integrations for. So
Yeah.
only when we have a very deep integration with the platform will you see it in that list. Um, yeah, you can kind of see this is what a component looks like, and you can right click on any of these and open it up to see the source code for that component, and I can change it. So if, for example, I wanted to make this work with binary files, I could like do RB or something like that and change what read file does anywhere. And it's very easy to extend. Essentially, as soon as I save this file, now the new read file will be called essentially. So um, yeah, it's really easy to integrate with those things. And then we also have one other integration, which is the desktop integration. So it's possible to give your agent access to a desktop, and when it's using the desktop,
Mm.
it will use the mouse and keyboard to integrate with other things. So uh, if you have like a web application or like LinkedIn or these other kind of things where there's no easy way to make a integration with it, you can use a Windows desktop as a escape hatch essentially, and that will let you integrate with a lot more things. It's a lot slower, so it's kind of like a last resort type of thing, but you can just download this client, install it in any computer that you have, and now your agent can
Mm.
access that computer.
That's quite cool. Yeah. So basically, it's like you can either have it run on like a
Yep,
VM
and in the
inside
next
your
version,
own desktop, or
not
maybe
the
on
one
a
that's
remote
currently
machine
deployed,
is
when
also
you go to
possible
create
as well.
workspace, we give you an option to create a virtual machine
Mm.
inside of the platform. Uh,
Mm.
so, uh, so even if you don't have an extra desktop lying around, you can create a desktop
Ah,
that agents can connect to,
nice.
and just subscribe to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really
Yep.
cool. And then basically, so you give like agent the full access authority with, I mean, probably with some instruction as well. Like, what do you, for example, maybe like scrape data from some sites,
Yep,
or maybe get
exactly.
the
And
contacts of
that's
these
kind of one of
sales
those things, right?
organization
It's
from
like
some industry, right? So on
so
and so forth, right?
when you want
Mm.
an agent to do something step by step, in essence, you can just do step by step in this drag and drop type of thing. But if you were to think about, okay, if I make an SOP for a human, those are quite long sometimes. It's not like step one, step two, step three, you're done, right? It's like a lot of stuff that you kind of want them to do. So what we
Yeah.
have done is we've created
Yep.
what it's called skills here, mainly because Anthropic started calling this kind of stuff skills. But these are actually called procedures or working procedures before. And what it allows you to do is you can kind of set up, like a section by section kind of document. This is step one, this is step two, this is step three, for example. And then, these are the tools that you should use for step one, and these are the tools that you should use for step two, and so on and so forth. And the great thing about this system here is that you can write in either Markdown or just like kind of plain language what everything is step by step. And then after that, we compile that to, let me open up a place where I have one working. We compile that into a circuits graph where you can see all the steps. And the steps are like named so that you can kind of see at the high level what's going on, even if there's like an if statement or a while loop, so you don't have to, write all that stuff right away. You can just kind of have, go to light mode here, things like read file and then get the Google Doc contents and then, delegate to large language model type of thing, post message to Slack. So like we can create the graph from a human description. And, if you are running a business, having SOPs is really important. You kind of want to have like SOPs on telling people how to do things. So of course you want to do that with your agents.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So basically, you can like teach the agent like entire skill of maybe some knowledge worker, right? That have, I guess, the most common would probably be like a customer support person, right? I think usually those are the roles that actually would have like a real SOP, like standard operating procedure. And like, if customer says this, like how would you respond? If customer runs into this problem, how would you respond?
I mean, also like,
So I
like
feel like that's
marketing,
a
for
really
example.
good fit
So
for that type of
if
role,
I wanted to
but
have
also many other use cases as well.
Essentially like what it means to do the marketing in the company. So like in the morning, I want it to go look at LinkedIn articles to see, is there any news article that is trending on LinkedIn right now that is, sufficiently close to our business that we can leverage that, because LinkedIn likes to rank those stories higher than other ones. So if not, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm not going to stretch myself to match that. But like, is anything relevant to us? And so if so, then it creates a Google document, and I want it to, do a deep research in the Google document of, the story, so we have all the scoop, and then it can use what it knows about our company to create a new post for me, and then I want it to email me the draft, and then when I approve the draft and something, then I want it to post it in. It doesn't post on LinkedIn; it posts in a thing that will later on post to LinkedIn, right? Like Buffer, things like that, right? So. So like those kind of SOPs, you can kind of set it up and make whole workflows where one agent maybe does one part, then another agent does another part, and then that just means that I can like really actually automate my work and work a lot more hands off with real agents.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Yeah, for sure. And how do you like reduce the? I mean, how do you counteract the hallucination problem, and also try
so
to improve like
the main thing
accuracy
I
from
do
agent, right,
for
for certain tasks
hallucination
where
is,
you
one,
need
I
it to
give
be
the
more
agent tools,
accurate.
and also handoff. So here in like this Gemini Zybo, I have actually two agents. There's like the main agent and then this thinker agent, and it's kind of set up where every task that you want to do, it will send it to the thinker agent to come up with something. But I have in the prompt that it needs to think critically about the thinker's responses, and verify the accuracy. And if not, then give the thinker feedback to improve it. So because it has this ability to, one, it's prompted to have something else do it. So it's not tainted by the current context. and which might cause hallucinations. But then if it does produce hallucinations, then to call it out and fix it, right? So I have the agents kind of working together to do things, and I give them access to different tools to look up information by themselves. And they're prompted specifically to always look up information, never trust their memories, because I told them the world changes every day. And guess what? It's not 2024 anymore, right? So by giving them that kind of prompt, they use tools very judiciously. They look up stuff. And then because there's two agents, one is verifying the work of the other. And then also in the different skills, like the workflows that I have, I often have steps. So a human doesn't really do things in one pass, right? I mean, think about it. You write your rough draft and then you review it, right? You can just tell the agent, step one, write the draft.
Yeah.
Step two,
Sure.
review the draft
Yep.
for inaccuracies,
Yep.
right? Review the draft for like, other things that you want it to be correct on. And the thing is, humans, we have a backspace key, and LLMs do not. And I think that's a very important distinction. And that's kind of why hallucination happens, is that the agent can now start saying something,
Yeah.
and it's not always in control, and it might say the wrong thing, but it has to go with it now. Like it has no ability to go, oh wait, never mind, right, and go back. So giving it the ability to revise itself helps reduce the hallucinations by a lot. And I also I never trust LLMs by themselves. I don't, even though I do have the marketing agents that we can't see here for reasons. I don't use their outputs directly. I always have them give me a draft, and then I almost always spend a good amount of time completely rewriting the draft to kind of match my particular style. But it does help me a lot because I have a task, a thing to talk about, and I have a lot of research on it that I can look into. But if I feel like, oh, this sounds way too much like ChatGPT, then I just change it. But it saved me a lot of time anyway. And so that's the other thing. So the last line of defense is, these are not people. So you use the people. And yeah, I always kind of have a human in the loop before anything kind of real goes out to customers, is the way I think about it.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, you have like a couple of different mechanisms,
Yeah.
right? One is like, let me see if I can capture. You have two agents kind of fact check, verify the work of one another, which help, right? And then second is that you basically, giving in the right prompt to always like look up information when it comes to like facts, right? Obviously, instead of
Yep.
like just using their own internal memory, because the internal memory might be not accurate or not corrupted for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then the last one I
And
think you said is
it's
human
a
in
it's
the
a
loop,
it's
which
a
is,
balance.
I
You
mean,
kind of,
that's probably the best.
if you
defense, I
human in
think,
the
yeah.
loop too much, you haven't saved yourself any time, right? Like you've kind of like added an intern that's really dumb that is now kind of making more work for you than they're
Yeah,
producing,
exactly.
right? Yeah. So you kind of have
Yeah,
to, with the combination of giving
that
them the
need
right
hand-holding, right?
tools
Yeah.
and the right prompt
Need hand-holding, yeah.
SOPs, you can get them to produce pretty good quality code or work consistently. And as long as you get that consistency good, then yeah, as long as that consistency saves you time, that builds, right? And it's kind of like a compounding interest type of thing.
Hmm. I see.
Yeah,
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
one
Do
of
you
the
fine-tune
interesting
any of
things
the
about
models, or you
what
just
we
use
have
a
is we actually
base model
have
and then
support for like
just
PyTorch and things like that in
customize it?
here, and also using the like fine-tuning features of the platform. So like Mistral fine-tune, OpenAI fine-tune. So the thing when it comes to agents is you need to, because they have the tools, it's not just enough to store stuff. You kind of have to give them a data set where they use the tools correctly or better or with less needed steps. So you have to make an agent that can grade the results of another agent, and then you use that agent to create a data set and then once you do that, you do the start fine tune. So yeah, like we have the ability to kind of set up periodic jobs. That's the jobs thing that you see here, to go and like run a training loop, for example, and then update the model that your agent uses. Um, at the moment, we're still working on like the feature for like having a nice graph of those things, so you can kind of see agent one, agent two type of stuff. But that is coming very soon as well. So um, in the next version of the agents panel here, there's going to be like versions, and in the versions you can kind of compare the different statistics of the agent, over time. And the idea there is, if your agent is learning over time, then it becomes more sticky, very more useful to you, and not something that you can just like remember, we're kind of competing against ChatGPT, but in a sense, right? Like their model's always going to become better and better.
Yeah.
But the question is it better for everyone or better for your business? And when you're using the agent in reality, and it's getting this understanding your feedback and knowing how to use the tools that you've given it, you get an agent that is different than ChatGPT, and ideally more suited for your business, and that becomes like an asset. And I do think in the future, people will not just look at the valuation of companies based off of the people that they have and the assets, but also, how good are the agents? Like how many agents do you have? What parts do they do? And then how good they are at doing that. And that will raise the value of your company as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, I mean, you hit a very interesting point there, where I think that in the future we'll begin to see, like one person
Yeah.
that can make like a
Yeah,
$1
I
million
totally
company,
want
or even like $10
the
million
first
company, yeah? Because
single
one person
person
is
billion
run by
dollar
a bunch
company
of
to be
agents.
our
There's like no
customer.
employee, right?
I
So like
remember
zero
saying
employee
that
type
like
of
in
company.
2023
Yeah.
at the AGI house, and it's funny to see a lot of people saying that now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people, more and more people actually gonna. I already doing that. I think a lot of the indie
Yeah.
makers, indie creators, and
Yeah.
freelancer, right, just to improve their
I
work
also have
and
one
maybe
more
serving
tab
more
of some
customer, more
like
client
that
automation.
might be more
Yeah, pretty
interesting to
amazing.
your
Cool.
audience, which is
Yeah.
in the last year there was the
Yeah.
Solana hackathon, and we got. I've always had this
Yeah.
idea
Go
in
for
the
it.
back of my mind, mainly because, as you notice, I kind of have to make the agent myself, right? And so, of course, we want to give our customers like templates of different agents, but giving a customer a template is kind of different than giving them a specific agent that does something. And so, I've wanted to kind of create a marketplace for agents, and ideally,
Yeah.
in a way that makes it possible for um, us to take advantage of non-Express AI things, right? So like if you happen to make a Crew AI based agent or an OpenAI based agent that can do some specific task very well, I would like to be able to offer it, to our customers in a way that is completely decentralized. And I kind of created this white paper and kind of quick open source implementation of about what I'm, currently just calling the XAM, the Express AI Agent Marketplace. And the way it works is that essentially your agent has some task that is being asked to do, and if it knows that it's not good at this task, then it can actually use this essentially MCP server to put a task on the job board, a decentralized job board, and then different workers in this decentralized job board can stake their own like soul into the task and perform it. And once they have produced the deliverables, a third party, which would be a judge, which is also a type of agent that you can put into this decentralized marketplace, can judge which of these submissions was the best, and the one that was the best gets the money. The ones that were not the best get their stakes returned to them, and the judge, for performing the judge actions, gets a part of the stake, essentially, not from the participants, but from the person who created the task. And then after that, the requester gets the deliverables, but also a decryption key. So everything, like if the is essentially set up so that there can't be any bad actors. So if I'm putting a task onto the marketplace, I can't just steal it and say nobody wins, right? You have to dish out the soul to give the received the decryption token of the winner, essentially. And then the ones who did not win, well, their deliverables are encrypted and you cannot access them. I think this is an interesting idea, and yeah, kind of looking to build it up into a thing. And once there's like an actual marketplace of agents that are specialized at these kind of things, we can build it into the Xpress AI platform and kind of let it so that people can leverage these specialized agents in their companies. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting idea, and actually the timing is just perfect and excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you probably heard of the X402, right? The like 30 years ago, it was like supposed to be the code
Mm-hmm.
where like for by what is it? How I say it? Payment? Like payment is like a payment
Yeah,
protocol, right? But it's like 30 years ago, but it was never actually implemented back then because there was no way to do micro payment. When micro, I'm talking like a cent or less, right?
yeah,
But now with a stable coin and crypto, and you can actually send transaction for less than a cent. It is now possible, and I think there's already many people and
yeah,
companies actually experimenting on like agentic payment, agent to agent payment, and also agent solving solution, and then getting payment. So I feel like this is certainly for sure it will be a need for some sort of a marketplace, right, to verify, but
yeah.
also like to maybe act
Yeah,
as a
I can see like
intermediate, but also just to
it's like
where
a
you would
agent
go to get like
Fiverr,
some of the tasks done,
like
right?
you
So I
have
can
your
totally see
agents, but
this
they not,
playing into that.
maybe you can teach your agent how
Yeah.
to make a PowerPoint, right? But there's a difference
Yeah.
between having it, make a PowerPoint slide and then making a really good slide deck, And if you have an agent that's like, I'm like, let's say I'm really good at making pitch decks, and I'd be like, here's my pitch deck agent.
Yeah.
I've just encoded the way I make my pitch decks in that, and it is the master at doing that. And if if you want me to do that, that's few thousands of dollars. If you want my agent to do that, that's like a few $100 or maybe tens of dollars, something like that. And then yeah, you can just like put these tasks onto the marketplace, and your agent, which has encoded like your own
Yeah.
skills, can earn passively. And part of this is that we have a toolkit in here, right? So it's easy to create these agents drag and drop. So you don't necessarily need to be an expert either. If you have your own SOP of what it means to do something really well, you can encode that SOP, and now you give it access to the MCP server to participate in this marketplace. And yeah, I think like right now we talk about B2C and B2B, but this would be B2A, right? Where it's like agent to agent kind of things. And I feel like that's probably going to be the biggest
Yeah.
thing, because
Yeah.
of course, there's still many different things that we need to kind of iron out. So I definitely think of this as it's not ready for prime time yet. But like investors or Web3 people that would like to collaborate on it, I'm happy to talk about how we can make this move forward. Because I definitely think there's nobody doing it the right way here. Like not yet, and I would love to kind of make this be a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think, thank you for sharing that. I think many people are still like we're still in the very early day of the agentic commerce, and people are still figuring out the standards. I think recently, I think Ethereum wrote a X80 ERC 8002, which is like a kind of like a
Oh yeah.
registry of where like an agent reputation registry on chain, right? I'm still not sure how exactly it works, but like
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
have a reputation for an agent, like this agent performance, kind of like a review, right?
Yeah.
Like a Yelp review for your agent in a way, and then that to
Yeah, exactly.
verify at least on the
In
Ethereum
the
ecosystem, I would say. But yeah,
in
so
here I
I'm
also
guessing
had
you would
that,
need these
right?
type
So
of
like the staking,
the building blocks, like Lego building
I mean,
blocks,
it's not
before you can.
necessarily soul, it's staking your reputation on it, right? So like if you have a high stake, it means that the agent needs to, have enough
Mhm.
reputation to participate
Yeah,
in things, right? And everything's just built on top of like this kind of NFTs with wallets type of thing. Um,
yeah. Yeah, makes sense. It's just the same as in
mm,
Fever, right? Like you don't want a complete beginner or
yep, yep,
novice, right? You
exactly,
want someone who have
exactly.
done like
And
maybe a
I mean,
few
there's
jobs
still,
like with similar quality, and then
I
you
would
hire
say the
him or
problem
her.
of
Yeah,
like,
so totally makes
how
sense.
do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
deal with private data, right? Because you'd be putting it onto the public internet essentially. And so, yeah, if I created an agent that did all the work, but it
yeah,
also downloaded all the deliverables to me personally, so that I can sell it in the dark web or something like that, that wouldn't work very well. So, um, I still think there might be one more thing in this where I could receive the agent and run it on my own computer or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that part, but I do think for some tasks where, especially like marketing and these kind of things, where all the information is public, we want as many people to know
mm,
about it as possible. Type of tasks, this would be perfect for it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or tasks where it's like completely public tasks,
Yeah.
like everyone
Or
see it's okay. But yeah, when private tasks, yeah,
like
it's
if for the
probably
pitch
gonna be
deck,
a
right?
very
Like if you
tricky
just want a
workflow to
pitch
figure
deck
out. Yeah, and I feel like
template, right?
you.
Where you
Yeah.
just give it some fake information or like masked information,
Mhm.
scrambled information. So
Oh
it
yeah.
gives you essentially the
Oh,
template,
that's
and then
fine.
your agent can finish it with the
Yep.
real data. Like I think that could totally work, especially if you tell it don't leak private data into the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, the privacy thing is always gonna take things to like the next level. But there's of course ZK in like T like trust execution environment, but some of them may be overkill. Obviously, I don't have the answer, but um, yeah, cool.
yeah, maybe.
Excited that. Yeah,
Like there
so
there was
I guess you'll be
the
building that out in
the latest
maybe some
hackathon,
next
but
hackathon or something, right? Or like just
yeah,
getting
like
it out. Yeah.
so I have always
Mm,
had like a kind of passive kind of
mm,
um, maybe not necessarily Web3, but like a you know DeFi kind of interest. I do have a little bit of these things. I kind of started using Bitcoin to send money to my
mm,
family, like back in the day, and uh, yeah, I wish they didn't spend the money, right? Like they would have been
yeah.
back in those days.
Okay.
But yeah, I've always had the back of my mind is like I'm interested
Oh
in
yeah, I know.
new ways that crypto
We
can
should, right?
become
Yeah.
interesting, because I feel like if it's there was, especially early, there was kind of like because it was decentralized, there would be less regulations, and I feel like all those regulations have totally caught up to crypto, right? Like I can't just there's EKYC needed everywhere, and um, perfectly fine, right? Like if that's the law and you have to follow the law, that's perfectly fine. But you know,
Yeah.
it I feel like it didn't deliver
Yeah.
on that initial promise, right? Of kind of fully decentralized things, because everything becomes tied to this centralized kind of EKYC system, and um, like particularly for me, because I'm an American who lives abroad, it's the worst, right? I get kicked off of platforms as soon as they realize that, or whatever, because they change their terms of service, and then boom, now I'm gone. And for me, I feel like, that sucked. That America, or like this one country's kind of policies, um, can interfere, in a very real way with my cryptocurrency. It's not, of course, I have the keys, so I have the crypto. But if they can close every door or avenue that I can use it, then what's the point of having it?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of more interested in, yeah, like ways, not necessarily to go around it, because it's perfectly fine, right? There's nothing wrong with um, using AKYC to kind of prevent fraud and to
Mm,
prevent terrorism and these kind of things, right? So that's perfectly fine. But yeah, then what else can it do? And that's what I'm really interested in. And I feel like having agents that have their own wallets opens up the doors for various interesting use cases, new use cases of crypto. So um, like, although my focus is mainly on just making agents that are useful in the back of my mind, right? Like as more of a, I guess, a hobby, I guess, or a
mm.
passing interest is like, how can these things come together is an interesting question for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question to on problem space to look into, right? Obviously, and then yeah, obviously we both don't have the answer yet, but I do believe that like agentic commerce and agentic payments will be huge in the future as more and more people, with more and more valid use case come up. Like if you even imagine, like if even Coinbase user they use it a bit, and then
Mhm.
everyone just give a few dollars of their or a few
Yeah,
dollars of stable coin for the
exactly. I
agent to
think
do some
like
tasks for them, right? And then actually, I'm talking like productive,
it's kind of interesting is
useful tasks, and yeah, then I think that will
an
be
interesting
it
thing
will, it
about
will
like
balloon
humans
into
versus
something big. Yeah.
AI is that every human is different, but almost all the AIs are the same. And if you don't believe me, ask them to tell you a joke, and then go to each and every one, all of them. Go to ChatGPT, Anthropic, Google,
Mm.
all the Chinese ones, the open source ones, the closed source ones. Ask them to tell you a joke, and if you laugh, I will be surprised, right? Because they're all the same boring ass jokes
Mm.
about scientists, atoms, and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah.
like there's something to be said if you're using agents or
Oh,
LLMs for
oh
your
man.
business. If you're using ChatGPT for your business, every business is using ChatGPT. Everybody has the same
Mhm.
exact capabilities. But when you hire humans, you're kind of hiring them for their individual capabilities,
Yeah.
right? You pay a lot of money
Yep.
for a seasoned executive or a rock star programmer because they have this unique view that you can't get anywhere else. And so, you know, I'm not really that bullish on OpenAI because if all they're doing is one model to rule them all, it's not very differentiated. And one of the things I like about having this like marketplace and people putting their personal experiences, you know, maybe we will lose our jobs to AI, right? But we're not going to lose our jobs to the one big AI that does everything because that's not going to be as valuable as the unique AI that encodes your uniqueness. And I think that will always carry value. And if we can bring the world into that direction, yeah, maybe I don't need to work because I've trained 50 agents to do my work for me. That's a great world to be in. I think much better than an alternative, at least.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think OpenAI,
Yeah,
just like you said, or
not
the
even close.
large language model, I don't think they come any close to like the human creativity that we have. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
I think they excel at certain tasks that's really good. Like for example, processing a huge amount of data, doing like mathematics, and then maybe like analysis, crunching on a huge amount of data, or maybe scraping things like that. I think they obviously
Mhm.
very good, and also
Yeah.
memorizing things like they're also very good at that. Much better than
Mhm.
human, I would say, unless if you have like photographic memory, but then you're in the minority of the human race anyway if you have that. So yeah, I think we still need a lot of human creativity and yeah, a lot of our thinking going forward. So I don't think AI is replacing many
Mhm.
of the jobs yet, but of course, like that's what we see in a lot of the headlines. And but I think also should be covered that
Yeah.
a lot of the headlines are usually for like striking, like attention
Mhm.
grabbing information, right? Attention grabbing news, right? Obviously, because that's how media is work these days. It's just how the
Mhm.
world works.
Yeah.
So we tend to see those
Yeah. That's,
bad effects more than the good
I,
effects. I see, but a bit more. So curious a bit more, like so what is the business model of your company? You can elaborate that a bit. Is that like pay per
I,
use or pay per seat or?
Yeah,
See.
so it's a pay per project type of thing. So when you sign up, you have your personal project, which is just you essentially, and you can create one agent on the platform for free. Mainly, I want you to be able to try everything, right? Like if you find an agent that is worthwhile, then you can upgrade to. We have like a pro plan, which is $100 a month, which should be good value, right? Like if you're using the pro plan on Gemini or whatever. I want it to essentially be like we can do everything that can do. We're still charging $100 for it. But for me, the collaborative agent platform really gets its value from collaborating with multiple people. And so we have the team plan, which starts at like 350, which gives you multiple projects and multiple team members together. And then we have like another tier at 1,000, another tier at 3,000, kind of thing, where it just gives you even more projects, access to certain resources, um, and higher throughput in models. It is also possible to bring your own key and also deploy this locally. So if you need or have the requirement to deploy this locally on your on-prem, like in your own personal AWS, for example, or maybe not your company's AWS, we can support that too. We have this license kind of system set up per server. So you can do a test system with just one server or do a production one with three. But if you need more than that, we have something that just kind of scales up with the amount of servers that you do. And when you do it that way, it's really a license just for the server, and LLM costs are on your own. So you can either use a local model and just go ham on your GPUs, or go out to OpenAI or Anthropic and use that as your models. And of course, there's no limit, so you can like mix all of them together in all various ways if you want.
Nice. Yeah. So basically, it's very flexible. It cater to both the individual hobbies, but also for the like teams and the
Yeah,
professional, the big companies, right? That want to build
yeah,
their
yeah.
own
And I kind of wanted
solution. Yeah.
I didn't want to do like a per agent or anything like that, because
Mm.
if you're trying to do X, right, it's not that you have one agent do X. You might want to have three
Yeah.
agents do the X that you want, and I want that to be
Yeah.
possible. So there is, in theory, I mean, of course, at like 500 agents or something like that, we might have to give you an email or something like that. But in general, there's no limit to how many agents you can deploy in a single project.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
See. So it's only limited by the creativity, how they want to
yeah,
structure it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you want, I kind of want to make it so that we make money when you're successful, when you're like you're successful and you want to use more because you'll make
Mm.
more money or you'll save more time. That's when we want to charge money. I don't want to like set it up in a way that penalizes. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of token based pricing, or like GPUs, they kind of
Mm.
um, even if you're not using the GPU, it kind of costs money, right? And
Yeah.
I don't really want, like, one advantage of AI is you can just turn it off, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't need to pay benefits or something like that. If you don't need it for a week, you just turn it off. I kind of want to go in that direction as well. But at the moment, it's kind of, we have some plans that go bigger the more successful you are with the product.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's probably the best model. Like when your customer like succeed like, delivering results, right, and then you get paid.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like it's a win-win for both sides. So it sounds like everything is going well with your company, but I'm sure there must be some like challenges, right, or difficulties
Mhm.
that your team face. Can you share what are some of the challenges
Oh yeah.
that your team face?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge has been that um, when we started, OpenAI was an API company.
Mm.
And, like, when you have an API company and you build on top of the API, that's great. What sucks is that they started to go into applications. So it's just like how, essentially in the apps, like in Apple's iPhone, uh, the best applications get copied by Apple, essentially. And I feel that happens here as well. And it it's kind of a little more unfair in that if they're providing the LLMs, they can also charge in a very different way. And I feel like Claude Code is an example of that, where if you do a Claude Max subscription,
Yeah.
you get a lot more tokens than $100 a month, and if we were to provide a developer thing, we actually have a template called Devi. It would cost us more to provide something at a similar space. So, the one of the main challenges I think of this is that the resources needed to train models. Like, remember when we started, training models is like, yeah, you have a GPU, right, in your computer. Well, that's good enough to get you started, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can train
Yeah.
models on that. You have a really, really big model you want to train. Well, yeah, you can, you can pay $100 or $200 for a cloud provider to get you a good set of GPUs for a few hours or days or something like that to train a model. But the the scale of like the models today, right, where you have like trillion parameter models that are really, really good, right? Like, so that's really, really amazing. Um, but those are definitely cost prohibitively expensive to train, and really, really complicated to deal with trillions of tokens. It's not a trivial thing to do. So we're until there are really good small models or some new paradigm that makes it so that you can make a very small model that you could train on your own desktop machine, like a server class machine, something like that. We're going to be like reliant on these vendors, and if the vendors were just giving us APIs to these models, everything would be good. But they are coming in and just implementing all the good ideas, right? So I feel like that makes it hard because we have to spend a lot more time figuring out the positioning and stuff like that. And so that's why, um, yeah, I'm focused on that like local kind of niche, because I feel like that's a place where they can't go because they're trying to be cloud providers, and I want to go in the anti-cloud provider way of doing things.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And also, I mean, from what I've read and known, that a lot of these big large language models creators like OpenAI and Anthropic, I mean, I think we both know that they have not turned a profit yet, right? They're
Yeah,
still raising
that's another
money and
big one.
still, yeah, they're still burning a lot of money. And actually,
Yeah.
but the cost of I think, what is it, Sam Altman said the other day, he won like to have 1 trillion, if I remember correctly, the number,
Mhm. Yeah,
right? To build
exactly.
like data center, 1 trillion. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
Oh man, that's bigger
that is a
than,
lot of GPUs.
yeah, that's bigger than
And
it's,
it's
yeah, yeah,
it's like it's a crazy hedge that bigger will always be better, and I'm not
mm,
100% sold on that. Like,
yeah,
if you haven't, definitely try Olama and like one of the
mm,
small models, or Liquid AI has these very small models that can actually run on a phone, um, and they are like the small models are definitely stupid, but they are very close, and I feel
mm,
like there's a very big possibility that we can get um, very good models that use data instead of have data embedded. And it's a little weird, right? It's like we have like GPT-5 and these things. They're PhD level. Well, they're PhD level in the sense that if you gave them a test that you'd have to be a PhD to solve, they can do it. But why is a PhD necessary for that? And it comes
yeah,
down to the fact that we have lossy bad memories, right? So you kind of have
yeah,
to know the topic very deeply to answer these questions. But if you are a lot less intelligent and it was an open book test, you would have an easier time, right?
yeah,
Like, if you
yeah,
had access to the internet and you just Google all the answers and you
yep,
weren't completely stupid, and you had an unlimited time, you could probably also pass those tests. And so we're testing benchmarking these LLMs against a human failing, and of course they're doing it well because they have these perfect memories. But if you were to put the LLM, which is supposed to be PhD level, and put it into a trivial puzzle of some sort, you'll find that they can't do it at all, right? Like, if you ask, like ChatGPT, is there a seahorse emoji, and it just goes completely nuts,
yeah,
right?
it's gonna go crazy.
Yeah, kind of goes crazy, right? And like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not real intelligence. Intelligence it's Andre Carpathy said that they're like ghosts, and I think that's a really good one. If you think of the ghosts in Harry Potter, they're like stuck in this point in time, and like they're showing emotions and they're kind of doing these kind of things, but they're not alive. They can't change, and they're not really thinking. They're just kind of like doing these motions, and that's really what an LLM is currently doing right now. And the intelligence that they have is very dependent on the data, right? So like they have examples of smart happenings or smart words coming, and they've memorized enough that they can pick the smart word without having any real like understanding behind that. And that's kind of what's happening right now. But I do totally believe that it's possible to make a very, very small model that has the knowledge but not the data, and that it can look up the data. So we just, if you could have a model that you plug in Wikipedia, it's like 9 gigabytes, right? And it knows how to look up things and produce, language in a reasonable way. That would be, just as good, I think. So I'm still waiting for that to happen. Also experimenting on our own time when we can about how to make small models punch way above their weight, because I feel like that's definitely the future, where you'll have agents running on your laptops, not really in the cloud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, with the smaller model, it'd be more portable, and you can also allow it to do more things, right? And then more people would actually be able to like utilize it, and then of course for
Exactly.
your company use case, it's make more sense, and you can compete against them. Nice, cool. And so I'm curious, like, how do you see the AI agent? I think we've already talked a bit about some of the future, but how do you envision AI agents evolve in the future?
Yeah. So if you remember, there was this advertisement back in the day, or maybe not advertisement, but something from Apple. Um, I think it was like the
The
navigation.
one like 20, 30 years ago, like the one where they
Yeah.
throw
The one
the
where it's like not that one.
oh, it's another
Not,
one.
not
Okay.
throwing the hammer. So it's
Okay,
not Steve Jobs Apple. It's
I see.
the Pepsi guy Apple. What was his
I
name?
see.
Scully. So it's more like Scully Apple.
Okay, Scully Apple.
But
Okay.
they had this kind of fictional setup where they had this thing that looked like a tablet that was Apple
Mm-hmm.
hardware, and there was like a little like agent thing inside
Yeah.
there. And the professor had forgotten to do the lesson for the day, so he kind of collaborated with that agent to do the lesson for the day, essentially. And I feel like we're very close to something like that, but it's definitely not yet at that level, um, because in that sense, the agent was the computer. It wasn't so much like you have an agent in the computer, that it was the computer. So when the when he needed a graph of something, he said, "I need a graph of this thing," and the agent kind of created the UI for this graph, and then he could go and fix it. And so I definitely feel like the what we have right now is the fact that it has tools and it needs to access these things are definitely important. But in the future, they should be able to build the tools that they need, build the interface that you want at that moment, and kind of be the computer. And that's why I call Express AI like the first agent operating system, because I see the future of, in the future you might take a computer and you plug in a USB stick, and now you just install your agent onto the computer, and you know like the agent is the main interface to it, not so much the keyboard and the mouse and the programs. You don't necessarily need programs if your agent can make a UI for you. So if you say like, oh, I need to do a budget, and it can create an app that's a budget app, and you can say, but yeah, I like it pink and with ribbons, and then it can make a pink ribbon application for you, not just open an Excel file, right? And so I see that that's kind of where computing is going to be. So like there will be a merger of agents and computing in general. That's definitely the future.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if they are intelligent enough to build their own tools, and I feel like it's really cool. I feel like it's almost capable, almost same level as human. I feel like, right? Because I mean, that's what humans do, right? We build
Yeah,
tools to solve our own problems. So I mean, if they can
yeah,
do that, I feel like getting very close to the AGI day, or they have the creativity, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Somehow it
It'll be
just
interesting because like
mm.
you know, we currently have so there's always that question of like, will agents or AI take our jobs? And
Mm,
in a sense, right, the programmer is the first one on the chopping block. If you think of it in the wrong perspective, I think, right?
mm,
Because so if I'm an app developer and I want to make a new, um, like I don't know, like a to-do app, that's going
yeah.
to be good. That's gone, right? Because
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
can just tell the agent, it's like, man, I my ADD is too bad. There's too many things. I just need it. Can you organize it for me? And it goes and creates a to-do app perfect for your current situation, right?
Hmm.
UI and everything in pink ribbons because that's what you like to see, right? Uh,
Yeah.
like that is not a programmer. Like as in, only the richest of the rich people would be like, hey, Bob, I need a ribbon filled to do app right now for the current project. Like that doesn't actually happen. But the agents can make this kind of program. And so, in a sense, they're replacing the programmer. But what will never happen, or I don't think can happen very easily, is what if you want a future Tinder, right? Like Tinder or like these apps which put people together, that isn't something you can just ask your agent to do unless you want it to be a AI fake girl Tinder or something like that, right? Like that, it can do that, but it's not going to,
Yeah.
it can't necessarily kind of be everybody's app at the same time. I don't think. I mean, maybe it can, but there's always going to be like a different zone for where programmers and these kind of people are required, and it's interesting how the capabilities of agents kind of make a different, just kind of change the game very significantly and what will happen. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, super, super interesting view. Yeah, I don't think that I don't think that a lot of the programming or the engineer job is gonna be gone away anytime soon. I feel like there's a creative destruction. There's like a theory in entrepreneurship business where like with new technology, right? Some old job that is like providing low value that can be automated will be gone, but then
Mhm.
there will come a new type of job, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
now we have like a prompt engineer, and maybe we have like
Mhm.
more people who do like engineering, data engineering, for example, or like we want to put more like models in place and run data centers, right? Like physical people who work at the data center. So I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like some job gone, some new job born, right? But of
Mhm.
obviously people will still complain because like people who got displaced by AI, they may not have the necessary skills to get a new job, right? So, which is
Yeah.
the sad reality that we live in. But that's
Yeah.
my
It's
take on
interesting.
that. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
Mm.
when horses were the main mode of transportation, there must have been a lot of people who are actually, I'm not sure if a lot of people lost their jobs, right? Because like there's always horse, like maintenance is still a thing, right? Like
Yeah.
horses are very
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
My grandfather had race horses, right? So I kind of like know
Yeah.
that for,
I
um,
see.
but like now we have car mechanics, and so like
Yeah.
a thing
Hmm.
to think of is it's wrong to think of we lost jobs because you took we have X number of horse
Hmm.
stable maintenance people, and
Yeah.
this has been this kind of trajectory, and 30 years in the future we should have this many horse maintenance people, and those people will be out of a job, right? Like that's not how it works. There was cars, and then
Yeah.
once there's a car, the need for horse maintenance kind of plateaued, and everybody who learned how to do that kind of continues their job until retirement,
Yeah.
type of thing. And now we have a new problem, which is car maintenance. And you got to deal with oil, and
Yeah.
oil changes entire rotation. These things did not
Hmm.
exist
Correct.
before, and that will totally also happen in a similar way with AI, where now it's going to be you might need people to kind of be, I don't know, like AI therapists or something like that to kind of get them back in line, or not
Yeah.
to make it so they forget something that they remembered or something, or
Yeah.
update agents. So there's always going to be some new work that happens. Um,
Yeah. For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We don't know what those work will be. Like for example, I guess like label, like data labelers. Now we have people who just label the data to teach agent like, oh, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
human, this is a horse. So even things
Mhm.
like that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, just two
No,
more
it's
questions.
interesting because one
Oh,
of the,
oh.
like, you might think that's like kind of a solved question. At the moment, we do some work with like research labs, and they're trying to count cells and proteins in these things, and that's
Oh,
incredibly hard for
yeah.
models to do right now. They're trained on dogs and cat pictures, not like cell cultures, right?
Yeah.
So they're not able to do that very well, and so there's still, like the need for some things, and like if you have an old model, let's say we landed on Mars tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now there's like new cities on Mars, and we have to think about. So one thing, I've did a lot of calendars in my day. Like I
Mm.
mentioned, we had that software. I also did like Linux calendar software back in the day. What's going to be the worst is when we have to deal with Martian time. Like that is going to suck so much. You have no idea how bad that is going to be. And at the moment, if I tell ChatGPT, hey, make me like, how do I deal with Martian time zones? It's not going to be very helpful. It has no way of
Yeah.
knowing what a Martian time zone would look like.
Yeah.
So, until there's training data for them to kind of learn that, it's going to
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I don't even know what Martian time zone would be like there, but
Yeah,
you tricked my.
it's so
Yeah.
bad. Like the more I think about it, the more crazy. Like it's bad enough that there's now a lunar time zone, right? And so when there's a moon
Really?
base,
Okay.
there's now a lunar time zone, and it's essentially I think like 4 seconds behind or something like that.
Really? Okay. So
Uh,
time is
but
moving slower on there than
yeah,
on Earth.
so I think
Yeah.
it's essentially like 4 microseconds slower than Earth because of
I see.
how like the time is different, right? The clocks are
Yeah.
different in different places. Now Mars is even worse because it has a 26-hour day or something like
Wow.
that,
Okay.
and it rotates at a time zones are going to be different. Like at least with the moon, it's just one time zone for the entire moon, right?
Yeah.
But with Mars, there's going to be time zones for the different areas of Mars, right? And then it's like 26 hours instead of 24 hours, and so the year is longer on Mars, and so like
Wow.
man, it's gonna be the worst. I don't
Oh
want to
man.
be a
You like,
calendar programmer in the future.
so if humans like live on Mars, they would maybe like progress in their age, biological age faster than on Earth,
Uh,
I suppose. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, technically, yeah. Like so,
26.
for
Yeah. Right.
example, if you're an airline pilot,
Yeah.
you age over your lifetime. You'll have like 1 second less than everybody else on like
Okay.
someone who lived their entire life on the floor.
I see.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like
Mm.
based off of that, there's kind of different. But I think when you're in Martian's gravity well, which is a third of Earth, so it's like going to be a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting when like space travel will become a will become a
Yeah.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's kind of the point, right? It's like
Mm.
when we have the AI things, right? Who's going to program the mining bots, like doing the mining bots and the fleet
Yeah.
management and
Yeah.
yeah, like there's so much more stuff to be done. We're not even close to plateauing these things if we keep going. So
Yeah. For sure.
I'm
Yeah.
not too worried about AI taking jobs. We kind of need them to take the jobs so we can get ourselves to Mars. Like we haven't
Right.
gone
Right.
yet.
The
We need more bored people.
multi-planet. Yeah. The
Yeah,
multi-planet
exactly.
theory. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's an
Yeah.
exciting world to live in for sure. Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just two more questions before we
Yeah.
close out the show. One is, well, do you have any advice for people who want to build their own startup? I mean, since I'm sure you probably learn a lot of lessons and valuable things
Yeah.
along the way, maybe things that you could tell so that the future founders can avoid it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, I think my main advice is don't do a startup. But like I say the same thing about people who are about to get married. So when people like when I have like an employee or colleague or something that announces that
Yeah.
they're getting married, I'll be like, "Oh, you fool! You should have done that." So it's like it can be a very rewarding experience, but it's definitely never like the easiest. But that you're a startup founder because you can't handle not being a startup founder, right? So like the idea is, yeah, don't do it. It's probably a good idea in general for most people. And then the people who ignore that advice are the ones who should be startup founders because they can't not do it, right? There's never a good real opportunity per se when it comes to being a startup founder. Just a lot of work and stuff. And also like go little by little. I think this is actually really hard for people who've worked in like larger companies to kind of grasp. So it's very easy to overreach when it comes to the startup, especially if you came from a bigger company and you kind of have your network of people you've been interacting with. They can actually help you in that first year, and many will be very happy to do that. But that eventually fades, right? Also, like
Yeah.
if you get into Y Combinator or something, well, that will help
Yeah.
you a lot in that first year. But then that also fades. And um, one thing that I've kind of seen working at a Y Combinator company and others is that it's kind of easy to not build a proper sales function because you've been able to rely on other people knowing who you are, right? Um, and when that happens, you don't know how to do sales properly, and that eventually
Mm.
ends, and then you're like atrophied, like you have a muscle that you never worked out, right? And so when
Mm.
you go to the gym, you want to do leg day and arm day, right? Like kind of need to do
Yeah.
your entire body.
Body.
You got to
Yeah.
think of your business as the same, right? So even if you have no problems with sales or leads at the moment, make sure you have that machinery in place. Make sure you're exercising that, hiring for that, that you have the SOPs in place for that, because yeah, it can come very fast. Where it's like, holy shit, we have no revenue for this month. Why? How in the world did that happen, right? It's always good to have like a healthy business as much as possible, and that also goes to finance, right? Like finance and cash flow is always interesting because to be a founder, you have to be um, what is it? Uh, Incredibly confident in yourself, I think, and that is the worst kind of thing to be in the finance department, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
kind of want to be as pessimistic as possible, not optimistic. And so when you have a naturally optimistic person dealing with optimistic numbers and optimistic ideas in their head, the pessimistic reality of the world can catch up to you way faster than you expect. So, like always, what I try to do is make two spreadsheets, the optimistic and the pessimistic view, and just kind of um, put percentages into that, so you can be like, okay, you see the optimistic, but you also see the pessimistic, where like it should be always the most pessimistic thing you can come up with, right? If you like churn doubles, for example, or something else happens or somebody dies, you want to have that in your mind, and you kind of want to have your company always be somewhere in between these two, right? Because of course, if you land every deal, then of course you're going to be like, here it's profitable, there's no problems. But then something always comes up, and it's never what you can expect, right? Now you can expect a bunch of pessimistic things where you don't have any money, you got zero sales now, and runway is like 1 or 2 months. You kind of want to make sure that your company is always in the middle and try to know where you're at in between the two, because the pessimistic things can come very, very fast. And if you weren't prepared for that in any way, then it's too late. Like people do not lend you money when you need money. A banker is a person who
Yeah.
will give you try to sell you an umbrella when it's sunny outside and
Yep.
never when it's raining, right? So
Mm.
you have to prepare for those things. So when you do have windfall, figure out like what's the pessimistic thing. Is there something I can do in between to make things good? Make sure to, if you got to let people go, you let people go faster, not later. There's nothing good that comes from letting people go later than they need to, and things like that, right? So it's kind of try to wear both hats is probably my biggest advice when it comes to founders.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's quite a lot of advice. I'm not sure if I can condense it there, but I think first is that like, yeah, most people probably shouldn't be startup founder, right? I mean, that's your number one point. And then maybe for the 1% who goes against that advice, yeah, they really have to like have that urge, right? The big, I guess, design feeling to build something in their heart and want to do it like every day for the next, I don't know, usually 7 to 10 years, right? I think that's a typical
Yeah.
time take it to go public IPO for a company.
Mhm.
So yeah, they have to have that in their mind. That's like, spend the next decade just building that, and Yeah, and then once they're ready, and then there's of course a lot of new function, just like you said, they have to learn along the
Mm,
way. Like,
yeah,
because obviously it's not only about like the tech and building, you also have to learn like sales, marketing, and finance, just like you said, right? All of
yeah,
these are different skill set, and also maybe
yeah.
recruiting, how
And
to
in general,
trust the
you're gonna
right
hate all
people.
of them. You know, like there's
Yeah,
always the skill you like, and then all the rest that you hate. Right?
right.
Like you
Yeah,
got to do it. You know.
yeah, exactly. But I think you also found out probably the one they hate. They try to like outsource, not outsource, but like get
Mm,
someone else, right? They get the first hire to do it for them.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess it depends. I guess for sales, yeah, I feel like founder should try to do the first sales and then
Mhm.
like ramp up and then have the salesperson do it going forward. But I
Yeah.
don't think there's like a
I
right
attended
answer
a
or a lot
talk
of
with
those.
Guy Kawasaki.
Okay.
He
Oh,
came,
really?
and
Nice.
his main advice is that revenue fixes everything, right? So like
Yeah. Wow.
sales
That's true.
is the answer in
Yep.
general to everything. So if you're gonna do a startup, sales is the one thing that you need to be able to do. And you're gonna face a bunch of problems, but as long as you can sell,
Yeah.
you can keep the lights on. And in general, like once you accept money from someone, there's no giving up. You can't just be like, pack the
Yeah.
bags, right? So
Yep.
really think about when you do have the offer to accept money, like an investment, that changes the game. Like before we got our initial investment, I could have quit at any time, right? It's like, oh, the bank got to zero, and I could just do that, right? But like when you've accepted money from someone, uh,
Mm.
there's no fuck it, like that's not going to work out that way. You got to keep going until and if you don't go until the government literally stops you from doing your business, right?
Yeah.
Uh, People will hate you for failing essentially. So
Mm.
you got to definitely be prepared for that. It's a big difference, I think, that you don't really appreciate at the beginning, but then when you're facing like a crunch or a problem or something, and it's like, holy shit, like life is tough, and you can't just like change your job or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, entrepreneurship is not like you can just quit. Yeah, when there's
no,
like people
exactly.
dependent on you, when you have employees, like customers, like
Hmm.
depending on your solution, right? And then
Yep,
yeah, like so, there's a lot more responsibility that take on that. So
yep.
it's a tough work, I'm sure, like mentally and physically, very
Hmm.
exhausting. So I really respect that a lot of the entrepreneurs that come on my podcast, sharing their stories, and it's been very inspiring for the listener, I'm sure. Cool. And yeah, one final question. Yeah. So I mean, where can people, where would you like people to follow you and give a
Oh
final
yeah.
shout out to?
So if you're interested, try to search for Express AI on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Not Express AI Automations. That's a different, or Express Automations or whatever. That's a different company. But
Okay.
Express AI. Eduardo Gonzalez is hard to find. So if you do Eduardo Gonzalez Express AI, you usually find me. I try to post on LinkedIn and Twitter. Twitter is more geeky things. So if you're interested in geeky things, do the Twitter. If you're interested more in like what can agents do or Express AI things, follow me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm also part of the Tokyo AI group. So if you ever see a Tokyo AI meetup in Tokyo, please come. Right, join our Discord community there. It'd be great to kind of get people who are interested in startups, interested in AI being there. There's a lot of interesting entrepreneurs there. If you are in San Francisco, I'm often in Palo Alto in the Japan Innovation Campus. If you ever have a chance to go or see um, some kind of event that they're doing, they often hold events there. And if you happen to see this podcast, feel free to email me, egonzalez at Express AI, to see if I'm there. I go between Japan and the US. So if I'm there, we're totally happy to meet up. And yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put all the links down in the show notes here, so people can follow you on LinkedIn, X, Twitter, and also yeah, so where people to check out your website as well, obviously, and Express
yeah,
AI. So put all the
yeah,
links in the show note. Yeah, once again, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show, Eduardo. I think we've covered a variety of topics today. Anyway, from like AI, Web3, so a lot of AI agents, commerce, yeah, some human talks as well too. So,
yeah,
thank you again.
yeah.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
So,
Likewise. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great.
it's a real pleasure. Likewise. And we're back to my studio. What do you think about AI agents and the work that Eduardo and his team at Express AI are building? Do you think that AI can replace jobs or create new jobs? Whichever side you're on, feel free to let us know your opinion below. If you enjoyed this episode about Web3 and entrepreneurship, please give a like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Thank you for watching and see you next time.